Hello everyone and welcome along to the TurfCast podcast pre-game show where we get the lowdown on the opposition with a fan of the opposition. And this week it's Norwich City who visit Turf Moor in what promises to be a big game for both clubs. Burnley, of course, second bottom of the Premier League after another poor start to the campaign. But it's been poor only in terms of results, in my opinion. We've had some very good performances. Leicester at the weekend should have won. Brighton on the opening day should have won. Everton, apart from a mad few minutes, should have won. I don't feel like the league table represents where we should be on our performances. And of course, Norwich, bottom of the league, rooted to the bottom. Obviously, they'll be used to that feeling, to be fair to them. 6 defeats, 6 games, 16 goals conceded. But they do have a favourable run of fixtures coming up now. So they will be looking at this and hoping to get some confidence, some much needed confidence into their ranks. The weather's turned. It is now freezing. I know it doesn't look like it, actually. It looks like it's, beaming sunshine. It's just kind of screwed me over, that, hasn't it? But believe me, 15 minutes ago, the rain was battering that window. The heating's on. I caved and put the heating on before the October deadline. So I apologise to men all around the world because you're not allowed to put your heating on until the 1st of October. That's normally the rule anyway. But I've caved. It's the 30th of September and I had to put it on a day early. It's freezing. So the weather has turned. Can Burnley's season turn around? Can we get that win and push on? Like I said, this is the pre-game show. We are going to get a lowdown on the opposition with a fan of the opposition. And I am now joined by Joe from Canary Cast. And just like that, as I said, we are joined by Joe from the Canary Cast. Great name, by the way, mate. How are you doing? You all right?
Yeah, it's the Joe Derby this weekend, isn't it? It might get a bit confusing, but I'm very well, thanks. Thanks for having me on. I'm looking forward to the game, actually. It's a pretty big one, isn't it, looking at the table?
Yeah, it is a pretty big one. Let's talk about Norwich's season so far then. I normally what I do at this point, I say, talk to me about your season so far and just let the opposition sort of like fan go for it. But I don't want to, send you into a spiral of depression because just looking at the league table, I mean, that might be a bit harsh, but just looking at the league table, obviously bottom of the league, we've not had much of a better start. So, not really getting on our high horses, but bottom of the league, 6 games, 6 defeats, only 2 goals scored, 16 goals conceded. What's that been like for you as a fan?
I think when the fixture list was announced and then we had Liverpool, City, Arsenal, who was the other one in the first 4? I think maybe it was Everton. Leicester.
Yeah, you've had Everton, you've had Leicester.
We all knew it was going to be a tough start. Like looking at that on paper, we obviously weren't going to get a lot out of that. Liverpool first day, it was nice to be back in the ground. Obviously, that sort of overrode the result, to be fair. Encouraging performances from a few people across the park, like Janulis had a good game and stuff like that. Then we went to City, got torn apart, and Janulis was actually at fault for like 3 goals, got taken off at half time. City destroyed us with that ball between the centre halves and our wing back, like they do most teams. Leicester at home was a bit more encouraging. We did get a goal disallowed to make it 2-2, or it was 1-1 at the time, actually, I think. A draw would have been lovely. I think a lot of Norwich fans came away from that game thinking, we could have got a point out of that one. Then we had Arsenal. I went to that, and Arsenal were honestly nothing special, but we didn't really go for it. Like they only won 1-0, bit of a scrappy goal, and you think maybe we could have got a point from that as well if we'd gone for it a bit more. And then the worst one is really Watford at home. Like full house, you think, right, we've got to win this now, especially after the start we've had. And we just got torn apart by Sarr.
Yeah.
And that was the one that hurt because you think, like, all right, you can allow the first 4 losses, but that one wrangled a bit. And I suppose that's a similar setup to this game. This is now looking very much like a must-win for Norwich and Burnley, to be fair.
Yeah. Looking at your next few fixtures, though, there are a few winnable games that you'll see as winnable in there. So obviously you've got us on Saturday, then you've got Brighton at home. They've had a good start. Obviously beat us on the opening day, but I do still think any side's got to look at Brighton at home and think if we want to start staying in the league, we've got to be winning them games. Again, I know it sounds a bit rich when we got beaten of the opening day of the season, but obviously you're going to lose some. Then you've got Leeds. I forget the Chelsea one. Obviously, I'm just going to ignore that one. Same. I'll do that with Burnley, mate. Don't worry about it. And then obviously you got Leeds after that. Then Brentford away, again, good start. But again, maybe going into that thinking you can win something or get a point. Then Southampton at home, similar vibe. Then Wolves at home. then Newcastle away, and then you go into like another tough run after that.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at that and I'm thinking, you boys could be, out of the relegation zone by then. I mean, we've all got to play everyone once, but you've got to be looking at that run of fixtures, a very favourable run of fixtures, and thinking, 6-9 points minimum?
Yeah, it's going to have to be. I think, like, if we're gonna stay up this year, it's got to start happening now. Like that run of games you just mentioned, we've got to collect points there. Like you mentioned the Chelsea game, I'm going to that. I don't know why I'm going to that. But like the other games, like Leeds, you mentioned, they haven't been as good this season. The Brentford one's a tricky one because like we finished well above them, deserved to do that last season. We played fairly well in our games against them, but just how they've started this season, you just think they're in a better place than us. But you're absolutely right. We do need to get points on the board now, and that really starts with this Burnley game. I think if you can go to Turf Moor, I know you said that you haven't done that well there. Yeah, I don't think you've won there since January or something. Is that the stat?
Yeah. January or February, I kind of shut it out of my head. I think the last time we beat a team at home was Villa.
Right.
He says with a lot of confidence. Like last year, like February or January. Yeah, so it's not the fortress that people think it is anymore.
Yeah, I mean 3 points there, or even a point to be fair. Let's take baby steps. Let's not run before we can walk.
Yeah.
But yeah, anything from Turf Moor would be really appreciated by the players and Daniel Farker, but also the fans, because we're all on we're a bit low at the minute after the start we've had, and I just think that could prove to be the boost that we need.
Yeah, fair enough. What sort of game are you expecting then? Because from Norwich and from Burnley, what sort of like game are you expecting? Because you said that you're coming into this feeling a bit low. It's the start of a run of games where if you win this, that's going to give you loads of confidence going into a very favourable fixture list. So are you expecting Norwich to set up differently? Are you expecting you boys to be firing all cylinders in our faces early on? What sort of game are you expecting?
So the first few games of the season, we went 4 at the back. In the last 2 games and the cup game that we've had as well, we had Liverpool in the cup. We've gone 3 at the back. That has offered a lot more solidity. Obviously not enough. We're still losing games, but it does look a lot better. It will look a lot more solid as a foundation. But then we can't counter as well. But we are letting in less goals. We're away from home. So I think we'll set up in a 5-3-2. Burnley, we haven't defended crosses well this season at all. I think we conceded 2 or 3 from crosses. And I'm thinking that's probably one of your stronger suits at Burnley. Corners and set pieces as well. We're not as bad on set pieces as we were last time we were in the Prem. If you remember, we were just woeful at defending set pieces. That isn't the case anymore. But I wouldn't say that it's not our strong suit. We're just better at it. So you will prove a problem for us if you get the ball in the box, which I imagine you will.
Yeah, that's pretty much how we play. Get the ball out wide, get it into the box, aim for Woody's head. And we do score a few goals from corners as well. We've got Westy whipping it in. Cornet, if he's back. I mean, Sean Dyche is doing his press conference now as we speak. Obviously, the people listening and watching this later on, it'll all be sorted. We're recording this on Thursday at 1. Sean Dyche's press conference is at 1:15, so we might have some more news on Cornet. I'm not expecting Cornet to be available.
How's he started? He looks all right from what I've seen.
Yeah, honestly, we love him already. Like, Burnley have been crying out for a player like this. Like, you'll probably I'll ask you this question in a little bit, but like people outside Burnley looking into Burnley, they just see us as this, 2 banks of 4, like no creativity whatsoever. Which some games I can see where that's coming from, and we've been crying out for an outlet because Dwight McNeil's been the only person with any creativity in the side for quite a while now, and it's taken the pressure off Dwight, and he's come in and he's done really, really well. He's he seems to have taken Burnley fans as well into his heart. I don't know if that's a bit dramatic, but some of the stuff he's putting on Instagram and things like that, saying I'm feeling loved already and things like that. And then his performances on the pitch, like scored a real goal against Leicester. It's not going to be on front page at Sun at any time soon. It's been shown on Sky Sports or anything, but it was a decent finish.
Yeah,
and it's one of them that if I don't know Greenwood had scored it, for example, it would be. It were a good finish, and that's the sort of play we've been crying out for, and we've needed it for quite a while. But obviously, now you've asked that, and I've mentioned that. So how do you sit outside looking in? How do you see Burnley sort of like, as a team and as a setup? How do you expect us to sort of like play our games?
Like you said, to be fair, get it out wide and get it in a box. I saw Dwight McNeil's numbers the other day, and he's up there in the dribble category with like Adama Traore and that lot. Always been quite impressed with him. But you can see what Burnley trying to do. Like even when you had, I don't know if he's still there, but you had like Aaron Lennon. Like you just want a winger to get the ball in the box, right? That's the game plan.
Yeah.
So I imagine, I don't know, will we force you inside? I don't know if we fancy that. But to be fair, if you do get the pass the wing back and get the ball in the box, like you will win the game. Like that is not our strong point at all. And I know I've already said that, but like Norwich at the minute, we're so like you just know what's going to happen. Like when we played Everton last week, I said to Jacob, who does Canary Cast with me, I was like, what's going to happen today? Blah, blah. And he was like, we'll probably lose 2-0. We'll be all right, but we'll lose 2-0. That's exactly what happened. Like, we're so predictable at the minute. So, yeah, I am quite worried. But don't know whether we'll try and force you inside and limit how much you can use the wide channels. But we will certainly have to counter it. I'm thinking probably 5 at the back as well, because that's an extra man in the box to win the headers or hopefully win the headers, although that hasn't always been the case. We've played 5 at the back and still conceded headers from crosses. So, yeah, that is good. That's how you're going to do us, to be fair. I don't think you need to change anything. I think you're perfectly suited to beat us, to be honest with you.
Honestly, and I'm normally having these chats and then starting to feel a little bit down, like thinking, "Oh, this fan's quite optimistic here." It sounds like, but it's good. It's good to be on the other side of it for a change. I mean, I'm some Burnley fans, as we were just saying off camera there. Some Burnley fans might be going into this very optimistic, and you can't really argue against that with the start that you've had. But then I'm not overly optimistic because of the start we've had. We've only got 2 points. It's only 2 points more than you. We haven't won a game yet. We haven't won a game for quite a while. Not won at Turf Moor for a very, very long time. So I'm not overly optimistic. I do like the chat that you're saying about how you feel our play will be suited to play against you. I think forcing us inside might be a good way for you to counter it. But then depends who he plays up front. If he goes with Chris Wood and Mate Vidra, which fingers crossed is going to come out in his press conference, which starts in 3 minutes, and say Vidra's back is okay, and he can do that. Vidra's okay at running at the ball with his feet and going inside. And again, if Cornet plays, maybe, I don't think he will, he could get the ball and run inside. And Dwight can cut inside as well. He scored a real goal against Everton last season by cutting inside. So don't get me wrong, our strengths are definitely out wide, and cutting us inside will probably limit. But, we have shown glimpses in the past of what we can do. From the outside looking in then, as a Burnley fan looking at Norwich, I always I hate it when people sort of like say things like, oh, you shouldn't be in the Prem. This club shouldn't be in the Prem. You've earned it. Sorry, you're too small, blah, blah, blah. Because every club's there on merit. We've earned it. You've earned it this season. It's looking like, early on, but it's looking like you could go down. But from the outside looking in, for me, it always looks like Norwich never really learn. Like, they'll come up to the Premier League, they do everything exactly the same way, and then go back down. Then they come up, do everything the same way, go down, and you've come up again. You're doing everything in the same way. And it's, 6 games in. Obviously, things can turn around. Obviously, we just mentioned with the fixture list that you've got. And fingers crossed for you boys, it does after Saturday. But it always seems to me, as an outsider looking in, that you just never learn. Is that a fair comment?
I think a lot of fans are feeling that at the minute. They do feel like, oh, we've made the same mistakes again. However, in defence, like when we last came up, we gave the players that got us there a fair chance to see if they could do it in the Prem. We spent like $1.5 million. We got in like Sam Byram, a load of loans. And I mean, that was quite obvious early on that wasn't going to work. This season, we've obviously spent money. We've got loads of new players that have come in. We have used the loan market again with sort of deals in place if we want to sign them at the end of the season in the summer. The only trouble is with that, we've spent loads of money, but we've also sold our best player in Emi Buendia. Like, if we still had Emi Buendia, I would quite happily be so much more optimistic, because he'll win you games on his own. Like he honestly will, especially like going to Burnley. No disrespect, but I just think he could win a game against Burnley. But yeah, we haven't got him anymore. And because we've had so many new players come in, they obviously all have to gel. That's going to take a lot of time. And to be fair, I don't think I'm out of order in saying this. Of the players that have come in so far, I haven't seen enough from any of them to think like, oh, he might keep us up, or he might put loads of chances on a plate for Pookie or anything like that. I suppose the one objection to that would maybe be Matthias Norman. He's come from Rostov on loan initially from Russia, and his long ball accuracy and success rate of long passes is ridiculously good at that level. And it looks like he's going to be able to do that here as well. He did get the assist for Pookie against Watford and stuff like that, and he does love a long ball over the top. So I'm hoping if he can do that, and then Billy Gilmore can be a bit more creative further forward, then we might be able to put a chance on the plate for Pookie or Sargent, who's yet to score, but he's a bigger lad and he might fancy a game against Burnley a bit more. But yeah, it's hard to know where the sort of danger men are at the moment, because you've got quality players like Max Aarons. He's quality, like he's a Premier League player, no doubt. Yeah. But he's not going to win us a game from right back. So I don't know. It's hard to see where the victories or the danger is coming from at the minute, to be fair, Joe.
Yeah. There's a couple of players you mentioned there that I were going to ask you about. We'll start with Pookie, because I remember a couple of seasons ago he came up and he was this for someone who didn't watch as much Championship as I probably should do, obviously because my team's in the Prem, work, have a kid, it's difficult. When you boys came up, and then Pookie was everywhere because he was scoring goals against City, he was scoring for fun. There was this Pookie party headline everywhere. It seems like this time he's had a bit of a quieter start to the campaign. Is he still just as good? Has he been having some injuries and he's come back, or is he getting old? Well, what's the situation with Pookie?
It's a few things, to be fair. So when we first signed him in that Championship season, I think the stat was he scored with every other shot he took. Something silly like that. It was like ridiculously good. Most of them assisted by Buendia, to be fair, which makes a huge difference not having him. But he plays an awful lot of football. Like he very rarely misses a game for Norwich. Very rarely misses a game for Finland. He'll comfortably play like, especially in a Championship season, he'll probably play like 55, 60 games a season. I think he's 31 now. So I suppose that does have an effect. You're right. When we came up, he got 11 goals in the first sort of few months of the season. He got a hat-trick against Newcastle, like first home game. You're thinking, blimey, he can do it at this level. And then he went completely off the boil for like 6 months. He did get a toe injury, to be fair, on his right foot, which the club were like, oh, yeah, it's okay, it's fine. He'll be out for a few weeks, blah, blah, blah. But it did seem to affect him. Like since then, he hasn't been as good. But Teemu Pukki is very, very good at finishing, and his off-the-ball movement, his timing of his runs, he's never offside. Like his off-the-ball movement is genuinely really, really impressive, like Premier League level. But he needs chances like put on a plate from him behind the defence. He needs those balls, like Buendia would have done. Cantwell does a bit of it, not as much. Steepen was great at it like a few seasons ago. But now you're sort of hoping Billy Gilmore or Matthias Norman can do that. Otherwise, Pukki is rendered a bit useless. Like at Arsenal, he played up top on his own against 3 centre halves. You're thinking, well, he isn't gonna score against 3 centre halves. Like he can't hold the ball up and play up on his own against 3 centre halves. He needs the ball in behind. So I think your concerns about Pukki are fair. He is technically very good. His off-the-ball movement is class. He's a good finisher. Like Jenny, he doesn't smash shots. He just places them. Really good finisher. But he has definitely gone off the boil the last sort of year. Saying that, he's still got like 20-something goals in the Championship. But we know this is a very different level.
Yeah, fair enough. Billy Gilmore as well. He's someone else I want to talk about. Did very well at the Euros, was class against England, if I remember rightly. A few comments from Burnley fans, actually, when he went to Norwich saying, like, why were we looking at him? He's very, very good. And I was agreeing. I was thinking, like, this kid's going to be big. How's he got on at Norwich?
So initially in the first few games, he was coming deep to get the ball quite a bit and sort of playing out of defence, getting the ball off the centre half and then moving it forward. He's been asked to play a bit more of a sort of box-to-box role since then. And you see in parts, like the cup game against Liverpool, he was really good. Like we didn't get anything out of the game, lost 3-0 naturally. But he did look really good in spells. And then he was dropped for the last couple of league games. And Farker was saying stuff like, no one's undroppable, blah, blah, blah. So I don't know if that's aimed at him or one of the others. But I think he's still trying to find his role in the team a bit. And being the smaller option of our midfield pairings, I think he will get pushed further forward, like a sort of Conor Gallagher at Palace role.
Yeah.
That's what I'm expecting over the course of the season. When he came in, I thought this is a quality signing, and I'm pretty sure it still is, but we just haven't. We're yet to see him at sort of at his optimum level, and I think a lot of that is down to not really knowing where he fits into that midfield at the moment, and also he's now been dropped for the last 2 games. So he's got him to go get himself back in the team. But yeah, initially I was buzzing to have him. Genuinely, I was like, that is a quality signing. That can't be any worse than Ollie Skip. But it's yet to come to fruition, to be fair, Joe. Like, yeah, it has been disappointing, I suppose. But he has, at the same time, he hasn't been absolutely terrible. Like, he's been fine, but just nothing special.
Yeah, fair enough. And one other person I do want to talk about is obviously Gaffer, Daniel Farker. He's been there quite a while. Not Sean Dyche levels, but, still there, for quite a long time in football terms. I think he's got you promoted twice.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yeah.
Is he still, because with Dyche, you kind of feel that he's in a job for life. You'll get some Burnley fans who might have a few murmurs and a few whinges, when we're not doing well. But obviously we did a show together yesterday. It's on the FansBet YouTube channel, or will be. I'm not sure if it is yet. If you want to go and check it out, please do. I'll actually put a link below in the link section. But you were saying that, there are a few murmurs of sort of like people wanting Farker out. Is that correct? And how do you sort of like view it?
So it's quite limited in the amount of people saying that at the moment. But it is starting to appear. So, like, the first season he came in, James Maddison kept us in the Championship. We finished like 16th, 14th, something like that, but we weren't good. Maddison's goals kept us up. He went. That season, everyone was like, oh, I'm not sure about this, but the club were like, we've just gone from traditional model to director of football and a head coach. Like, give it time. It's a transition season. We've got a load of shit to sell, which Webber did. Ever since that second season, everyone has loved Daniel Farker, and his football is really good to watch. Don't get me wrong, brilliant. But I think because we failed so hard first time in the Prem, which I don't necessarily think was Farker's fault, because that squad was not strong enough for the Prem, nowhere near. This time around, I think a lot of Norwich fans feel like Stuart Webber, our sporting director, has put a very good squad together, at least on paper, and that now the pressure is on Daniel Farker to deliver. He also signed a new 4-year contract in the summer, which is not ideal when you consider how we've started the season, but it's okay. I'll put my faith in him personally. But there is certain corners of the fan base are starting to not say, okay, let's get rid of him, he's shit. But they're saying, like, do we need to have a conversation about, can someone else keep us up? Because it doesn't look at the moment as if Farker is willing to change enough in order to keep us up. Like, the football's pretty, the players are really technical, don't get me wrong, but it's like in-game management. Like, when the players are on the pitch, they don't seem to be adjusting to sort of situations in the game. They'll just continuously play as they've been told to play. The subs come really late. Daniel Farker makes subs like 80 minutes plus. They're like ridiculously late. I don't know why he does it. I'd love to ask him. But yeah, I think it's fair to say that for the first time, really, apart from that, the first few months he was here, people are starting to say, do we need to change the manager? But to be fair, they're all his players. He's been here 5 years. It'd be a hard job for someone to come in and implement their own style on it anyway, I think. So yeah, I'm not expecting him to go anywhere anytime soon, but the conversations within the fan base are definitely starting to happen.
Yeah, that's interesting, that, because it sounded pretty much like you were describing Sean Dyche for a lot of that there, really. Very late substitutions, in-game management seems to be non-existent. Perfect example, 1-0 up on the opening day of the season against Brighton. We were by far and away the better side, should have been 3-0 up at half-time. Potter changes it. He notices that, we're winning the midfield battle. He brings Alana on. They overrun the midfield, win 2-1. Everton did the same thing. I can't remember off the top of my head who they brought on when we were 1-0 up. But they brought a midfielder on, went 1-0 up. When we went 1-0 up, they won the game 3-1, overran us in midfield. And Dyche never seems to react to it. And I always have the argument that managers should be proactive rather than reactive. Dyche sometimes isn't even reactive. He doesn't even react to the subs that they've made. I sometimes have a little bit of sympathy for him in the sense that our squad isn't that deep, really, and there's not really many options to sometimes bring off the bench. But bringing Mate Vidra on in the 85th minute, that's not going to do anything, Sean. And they're the sort of things that really frustrate Burnley fans when it comes to Dyche. But yeah, as I said on one of the shows yesterday, I kind of feel like our second bottom position currently in the Premier League doesn't really reflect how well we've played this season. As I've mentioned, there's a few games where we've gone 1-0 up and we've been playing very, very well. We played well against Liverpool, really. Obviously, they just in the end just turned it on. But, for 60 minutes, we held our own. We were one of the better sides, the better side against Brighton, the better side against Everton for quite a while. I don't feel that our league position sort of like reflects us so far this season. How have you seen Burnley so far this season? What do you make of them so far this season?
So my perception of Burnley every season is that I suppose your first goal is always to get to like 40 points, right? Like you're an established Premier League team, but like you're not quite, with respect, not quite big enough to like belong there. Do you know what I mean? Like you still have to fight to stay up every season.
Yeah.
But with Dyche, from an outsider's point of view, I always think like, well, that's a point in its own because like he does that season after season after season. So that is my perception is like, yeah, okay, maybe they'll hang around the relegation zone for a bit, but you'll always just about do enough. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you're not Norwich, you're not a newly promoted team, you're not like a West Ham where you can be up here 1 minute and then the next season you're down near the relegation zone. Like you're fairly steady, and I think a lot of that, from an outsider's perspective at least, is probably lies with Dyche and his ability to just get the absolute most out of that 4-4-2 or whatever it is you're playing these days.
No, yeah, I agree with that. I feel like with Dyche, I never really see us getting relegated.
Yeah.
But I think if we got rid of him and brought in, I don't know, Wilder, he's the only kind of person that I see would be a like for like change. If you do something too different, it's going to go wrong. As you say, you can't really get rid of Farker now because it's his players, and then it's a big job. Dyche has been here 8 years now, just signed a new contract as well. So you bring in somebody like, I don't know, like Marco Silva, for example, is the first name that comes off my head. Eddie Howe, sort of player that will play in a different way. It's too big of a job and you're just going to get relegated. So, yeah, I agree with that.
I always think with Sean Dyche, and I'd be interested to think what you think about this. Like, if let's say Burnley have a really good season, you finish like top 10 or something, like, just for argument's sake. And let's say Sean Dyche gets a move to a bigger club, like a Villa or a Spurs or something like that. Like, how do you think he'd do in a bigger job?
I don't know. There's certain aspects to his game where I think he would definitely need to adapt. Like, he's quite strict. He kind of runs sort of like a very tight ship. Like, you're not allowed to wear headphones on the team coach and things like that. And you've always got to have your shirts up. So, proper old school things as people which do annoyingly associate Burnley with. But yeah, I can't see, for example, he ended up going to Spurs, just as an example, because you've mentioned it there. I can't somehow see him telling Harry Kane, to be fair, he's quite respectful, so he probably would listen to him. But, some of the younger lads that are coming through the ranks and stuff, and, and the way that some of, like, for example, if he miraculously gets a Man United job tomorrow and he turns around to tell Jesse Lingard to stop, putting headphones on and dancing around the changing room, there's no way. There's no way. I do think he'll put it this way. I think he'll do better than Nuno's done. I do think he'll do relatively well. Do I think he'll go there and win trophies and stuff? I'm not sure, but as you've said, like, if Burnley finished top 10 or whatever, but he's done that twice with us now. We finished 7th, we finished 10th. And nobody seems to want to come in for him, and I'm not particularly sure why. I think it's the brand of football, or I think it's the tight shipness and how he is. And I can't see him, like, for example, telling players like Jesse Lingard and Paul Pogba to stop prattling about because they're just gonna say nah, thank you. Like an idiot, I forgot to plug my laptop, which I'm streaming off, into the mains. To be fair, we've been done around 25 minutes here now, so that's normally a sort of like length. But obviously, we'll just quickly get into the game and get predictions. I know, and everyone else who's watched the entire show and the vibe that they're getting off you will tell that you're not very confident with this game going in. How are you expecting the game to go? And what's your prediction, please, Joe?
The score will be 2-0 Burnley. It will be fairly routine. Chris Wood will score a header from a cross, and maybe like one of your centre-halves will score from a corner, something like that. I know I have been really pessimistic from a Norwich perspective here, but you have to understand that we haven't really got anything to be excited about. Like, we could have given Watford a game. It could have been like 3-2 or 3-3, and we could have been really in it, but we weren't. Yeah, it's really hard to be optimistic at the minute. So I'm going to go 2-0 Burnley. I I think we will probably go 5 at the back just to deal with the aerial threat and have 3 centre halves there, which might be a bit more solidity. But I can't really see us scoring if I'm honest. So I'm going to go 2-0 Burnley.
Fair enough. I'm going to agree with you as well. I'm going to go 2-0 Burnley, to be honest. You kind of sort of like gave a narrative of the game, which if you'd watched Burnley, for the past 5 seasons, I think you're pretty much spot on. I think that's pretty much how we beat you a couple of seasons ago, the last time you were in the Prem. Yeah. So I expect us to do something like that. I'm hoping for a marker, and I don't mean that in the sense of like 5, 6, 7-0. That's never going to happen. But I'm hoping for a nice, solid Burnley performance to sort of like, because we've got, like I said, we're all looking over our shoulders now and being a bit worried, and we've got some fixtures coming up over the next few weeks. Obviously after the international break, where we might start picking something up. So again, similar to sort of like you, we need to get that win, need to get them 3 points, and I think it's one of them. It's all mental and stuff. You get them 3 points, and a lot of it. A lot of the mentality thing, sort of like, you forget about it and you can kick on. So yeah, I'm going to go 2-0. But to be honest, mate, with the amount of sort of like things that I think you've got nailed on there, you could probably do one of them builder bets. Chris Wood to score, a header to be scored, set piece, a couple of yellow cards as well.
At least that'll make me feel a bit better after the game. If that comes in, that'd be nice.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, that's it for the pre-game show then, Joe. Thank you very much for coming on. If you just want to quickly plug you and your podcast, YouTube channel and whatever, now's your chance.
Yeah, sure. So Canary Cast, you can go and subscribe to us on YouTube, all the Norwich content. And then on Twitter is probably the best place to follow us, would be @CastCanary. And everything will be there. It will be, if you want a sort of Norwich perspective on the weekend's game, go follow us on Twitter. That's probably the best thing to do. And we'll give you the full lowdown. Yeah. Thanks for having me on, Joe. Really appreciate it.
No, I appreciate it. Very good to chat to you. And we will, of course, put all the links and stuff to Canary Cast and things like that in the description below. So please give them a like, give them a subscribe as well. But thank you for watching. And we will see you for the 60-second review either Saturday night or Sunday morning, depending on what mood I'm in. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you then.